Case file number 3441, written by Twilight Cab, The Tableau of a Turkey Sub. I was watching House of Wax recently, and it reminded me of an experience I had about a year ago. It's more on the funny side now, but at the time I was thoroughly creeped out. My husband and I were driving home from a trip, and we wanted to avoid the interstate, so we took some back way. It was pretty much just sticking to one road for most of the way until we got closer to home, so we figured we wouldn't need directions. Dumb move. Most of it was a dead zone. About halfway through, we were really hungry. The problem was, there was nowhere to turn off the road except people's driveways. We just had to keep going. At some point, there was a small town, so we turned off the route and drove in. Weirdly, there was nowhere that looked like it had food except for a single Subway. We're not big Subway people, but it was better than waiting until we're closer to home. We opted to go inside instead of using their drive-thru, but when we went to open the door, it was locked. Weird because it's the middle of the day. We looked at the hours listed on the door. Open until 9 p.m. We looked inside and saw a family sitting at a table and an employee behind the counter. It didn't look like there was anything bad or weird going on inside, so maybe the door jammed. We tried opening it again and it still wouldn't open, so my husband tried to knock. None of them even flinched, like they hadn't heard anything. He tried knocking again, a little louder this time, and again no reaction. I looked longer at the people, and I swear, no one was moving, not even chewing. I shook my husband's shoulder and said I wanted to just get back in the car and try their drive-thru. Maybe we'd have better luck with that. When we drove up to it, no sound came out of their speaker, not even static or a crackle, just silence. We didn't see anyone else in this town at all. We hadn't even passed another car. It was just silent. We looked at each other and agreed to just get back on the road because we both had a bad feeling, and I felt sick. Once we were closer to our city, I tried figuring out where we had even been because we hadn't even seen any signs on the road. It was a super small town we had never heard of. I recognized some of the businesses we had driven by, but one thing stood out to me. They didn't have any kind of fast food place in town, and definitely not a Subway. Where we had been was just an empty lot. I searched everywhere for a Subway that was even remotely close to this place, but there wasn't one at all for about 50 miles, so that was weird. I just wanted a turkey sub, stick to the interstate. So my favorite restaurant, Subway, has been involved in quite a few glitches as of late. Well, over the years anyways. But that's probably just because Subways are everywhere. I think it's actually the most popular chain in America, or is that McDonald's now? I think it's decreasing, unfortunately, but what can you do? So you went back and checked what possible town it could have been, and if you did find one that was possibly similar along your route, but it was just a parking lot, there was no Subway there, it could simply, quote-unquote, be that it's a Subway from the future, so you were peering into something that will be there eventually in most universes. So a time anomaly via a space-time portal? Very likely. Another possibility is simply through the looking glass. You are seeing a different universe as it is right now, so no time shenanigans going on. Simply a different universe. But both situations don't really explain why no one was moving or even chewing or eating their sub. You didn't see anyone else on the road. That makes it feel more like one of those fake towns where they test nuclear bombs at. But that's way out in the New Mexico desert where they build fake towns for that. And I don't think they even do that anymore, or at least not widely publicized. You're not going to come across a fake town where they're testing bombs anymore, to my knowledge. And I've also heard of military operations. Maybe the CIA, NSA, the actual military, special ops, SWAT teams, all that stuff, where they have fake towns created, and they train their operatives to operate as if they need to quell some kind of insurrection in the country itself, domestically, which, I don't know about you, that terrifies me more than any space-time portal or alternate universe site. Yeah. Not really political on that, just, yeah. I don't like the idea of that. personally. Welcome, I'm Paul. This is Dave. Today I have 13 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. My favorite story involves lightning. Let's get to it. Case file number 3442, written by Adept 34501. The Men in Polos. My neighbor saw something fly over the home at dusk. Its flight path was erratic, and its shape was unlike that of a conventional fighter jet, despite it moving at similar speeds. They discounted it as something they'd imagined until minutes later, a fighter jet flew overhead, following its flight path. Now, the three of them, parents and son, discussed it amongst themselves that evening, but never thought to tell anyone else, mainly because they didn't have a chance to. 2 days later, the father answered the door to two men. No identifying features. Middle-aged, plain clothes, polo shirts if I remember correctly. They then proceeded to question him as to if he'd seen anything overhead, what he'd seen, if he'd taken any footage, before politely excusing themselves and driving off. Now, these aren't eccentric people, nor are they prone to anything I'd describe as erratic behavior. Took place in the UK. Parents were late 40s, son was late teens. The story was initially told to me by the son, then later on by the father. Mother corroborated. Father and son were particularly knowledgeable in military aircraft, particularly UK ones. Used to plane spot together, and the son used to make those airfix models. While I never consider them experts, they had some detailed knowledge on the subject, which makes it even more interesting. Case file number 3443, written by Wolf Writes 89. Checkered on red and black. I own one pair of fuzzy, red and black, checkered pajama pants. I've owned them probably 5 to 10 years, so they're not soft anymore. They're that roughed, pilled feeling that fuzzy pants get after a million washes. They're distinct because they had a red drawstring that has faded to a more pink color now. I'm wearing them right now and putting away clean laundry, and lo and behold, the exact same pair of pants is also in the clean laundry pile, and I mean exact. The tag is faded and curled, the drawstring is faded pink, the fabric is rough from years of being washed. They are the same pants. The logical explanation is that I own two and forgot? But they're clearly both old, so I think it's a stretch that in 5 to 10 years I never noticed that I had two pairs or saw them both at the same time until now. All of my pants fit into one small cabinet. I don't own a ton, but just to double check, I carried them downstairs, still wearing the other pair, and held them up for my husband. I didn't want to prompt him to agree with me, so I basically just said, "What the hell?" He immediately knew what I was talking about. He said, "Yeah, I was going to ask you when you got a second pair of those pants. I noticed it the other day when you asked me to run upstairs and grab you a pair." So he didn't buy them. And again, these are absolutely not new pants, so if he had, it would have been ages ago, and I think one of us would have noticed two pairs sooner. I'm tempted to test the matrix by putting both pairs into the same load of laundry to see if I get them both back at the end of the cycle. Case file number 3444, written by Anonymous. The Maze of Providence. Mid-90s, Providence, Rhode Island. Living on the east side on the 3rd floor of a beat-up old typical Providence apartment house. The house had 5 apartments in it. 2, and one huge one on the top floor that I lived in with my roommate. The house was wicked creepy. Really loud banging pipes, everything falling apart, and the worst part, in the basement, there was a kids' daycare at some point, probably back in the 70s, but many flooded basements later, it looked like a horror film set with rotting kids' pictures and toys. The worst was rotting little toilets with little clown pictures above each one. Anyways, our apartment was huge and a maze. Past our bedrooms, there were all these interconnected closet-sized rooms that had no lights or windows. I never went in them, Creepy as hell. So I'm sleeping one night, and I suddenly wake up to find this woman leaning over my bed looking at me. Blue dress, with a high white collared shirt, dark hair, very early 1900s looking. She looked real, not ghost-like in any way. As far as I remember, there was a real person leaning over my bed, looking at me. I know I saw her. I freak out and jump out of bed to the other side of the room, but when I turn around there isn't anything there. Damn, frick me, I'm freaked out. But I don't believe in ghosts, so I assume I was just dreaming. For the most part, forget about it. Nothing ever happened again and I moved out. I visited some friends who are still living in the house about a year later. We are having a small party in one of the apartments when I get introduced to the guy that is now living in my old room. Totally unprompted, the first thing he asks me is, "Have you ever seen anything weird in that room?" And I say, "What do you mean?" He describes the same woman exactly how I remember her. Holy hell, I got chills. I told him I had seen her but never told anyone. So strange. I don't really believe in ghosts, but something odd happened and I don't know what. It's these little ghost stories with shared details with absolutely no prompting or forcing from the other person that just speak volumes to me because that's as close as scientific proof as we can get. If you have two people that don't know each other and come to the same conclusion or have the same vision or, see the same spirit in this case, even if they look real, I think ghosts can manifest pretty solidly. Maybe not entirely if you actually touch them, but per the light bouncing off them, yeah, pretty solid. But simply to say, if two people come to the exact same visual sight of something, that does mean that it was there. There's no other way to square this. You both saw the exact same apparition. Now you say you still don't believe in ghosts. Okay, fair enough. I mean, it's good to still be skeptical, but to me, I don't know what else it could be. Short of seeing a different universe, but even then, that's still probably not something you're going to accept. Which is okay, still, at least you don't have an entirely closed mind. That's good. A lot of people in this kind of situation would simply try to suppress the memory, never think of it again. Case file number 3445, written by Global Bus 8826, with Nary a crack. I wish to hell I'd taken a photo of my smashed watch. I'll never stop regretting that. I've had Apple Watches for a few years now, and twice over that time, I've crunched the glass by smacking it or some such. The most recent incident is shrouded in mystery, however, and I just don't know what to make of it. I'd just gotten out of the shower and dried off when I strapped on ye old faithful Apple SE version 2, same as ever. I don't wear it when I'm bathing, despite advertised water resistance. It was then that I looked down and noticed the glass was completely broken in a pattern of chaotic, intersecting horizontal cracks. When I ran my finger along it, I felt the splinters and breaks and even a faint buzz that I took to be a mild shock sensation. I mean, it was like shifted tectonic plates, visible as a craggy horizon when looked at from the side. I called out to my husband that we should look at Newegg for another refurbished watch, because goddammit, I broke mine somehow. He didn't question, he's used to me. Later though, when I mentioned to my grown daughter that I'd broken my watch, she grabbed my wrist and ran her silly finger along the glass too, because that's exactly what she'd do. I'm glad now though, because if she hadn't done that simple thing, I'd be left alone in this experience, and I definitely doubt my sanity. Many hours later, the three of us went to the gym. I remember being able to start the process of recording my workout by using care in maneuvering through the watch's touchscreen. But when I tried to stop the timer after 45 minutes of draining all sense from my body and brain, I casually reached down to end the workout, only to get a quick reminder of the watch's broken state. Ouch. I couldn't get the clock to stop on the workout app, so I ended up stopping it using my iPhone instead. Even so, the watch wasn't actively dumping bits of glass or anything, so I opted to keep it on while going about the evening's activities. Before sleep, though, I said aloud to my husband, "I'm just going to take my watch off and charge it. I don't want to wake up in a pile of tiny glass shards." And with that, I gingerly placed it on my watch stand and charger, a few feet away from my bed. The next morning, I awoke about a half hour after my husband, who had immediately left for our home office to get on a work shift. I went to put on my watch out of habit and saw that it was completely smooth, unbroken and unblemished, with nary a crack at all. Nothing near the watch stand, no untidiness or debris, no signs of funny business. I've never used a lens protector. My husband already had a watch on order from Newegg. What a guy. But this was the first morning after the drama of the breakage. My stomach absolutely dropped. I couldn't think of an explanation other than my husband must have received it overnight and somehow loaded it with my data, put on the old band, and disposed of the evidence. Of course, he didn't. Or he says he didn't, and the leap it would take to feel satisfied that he managed all that and lied about it too is harder than other pills to swallow, which are, I don't know. Anyway, the new and used replacement watch arrived several days later, and it now belongs to another family member. The frick happened. I'd assume some sort of spaciness on my part if there hadn't been moments that shake that theory, like my daughter's validation, my unknowing interactions that reminded me of the watch's broken status during the day, and so on. Case file number 3446, written by Weft, on a mission to nowhere. A little backstory. I've always told my girlfriend that I always wanted to go ghost hunting. I always brought it up jokingly, like around Halloween. I would always suggest going to a graveyard or something of that nature. So my birthday was in January, and she surprised me with 2 tickets to take a tour of the Mansfield Reformatory. It was about an hour and a half drive. I had mixed emotions when she told me, because I wasn't really sure if I would like going there. But hey, I had a few months to do some reading and learn a little bit more about the history of the place. Jump to that night. We drove to Mansfield, and I borrowed my cousin's camera so I could take some pictures. It was a really nice setup. They had food and drinks. Around dusk, they split us up into 3 groups of 20, and we head in. At this point, I was pretty skeptical, but I was hoping to see or experience something. The tour was pretty awesome. They took us all to historical places and told everyone about the different experiences people have had in certain rooms. Most of them were first-hand experiences of the tour guides. For example, flashlights dying, flashlights moving by themselves, footsteps above you, and the one that stood out to me. One of the male tour guides talked about a doppelganger ghost. He said that on multiple occasions, people who worked there had tried to hold conversations with them or tried to get the person's attention, but when asking the person later about the conversation, the person was either in another part of the building at the time or not even in the building when the conversation went on. After that, they also took us to different places where they filmed The Shawshank Redemption. It was very interesting. We also went to the shower room, and this lady was communicating with the spirit there, with the dowsing rods. It was kind of cheesy, but I was in the mood to believe. After the tour, it was around 9, and we all met up again, and they turned us loose. We had all night to walk around the prison and explore. Right off the bat, my girlfriend and I turned on our flashlights and started walking down one of the main corridors. My girlfriend was pretty nervous about the whole thing, and was kind of regretting getting herself into something like this. After wandering around for 5 minutes, we met up with another young couple that was in the same boat, 2 young college students who, for the first time, are ghost hunting. Girlfriends are freaked out. So the logical thing to do was to join our forces. So our little group wandered around for a good 3 to 4 hours, not really seeing or hearing anything. The place is huge, so you would only see another group maybe once in a half hour. Once we met up with other people, they were pretty eager to ask to swap stories of the night. Of course, we told them that we ran into the occasional bat flying at head level. We heard a few stories of people hearing footsteps, feeling cold spots, and getting touched. We just took those stories for a grain of salt. It was getting pretty late, 2 to 3, so we went and explored a little more. Here is where things get interesting. We head to the front of the building. For people who have seen The Shawshank Redemption, it is a room with the safe in it. Also, I think it's the main detention officer office. It was one of the only rooms with a desk and chair in it. So we goofed around taking turns sitting in the chair from the movie. After we sit there for a while, we decided to turn off our flashlights and just sit in the dark for a while and listen. When we got bored with that, we exited the room and started to look at our map to see where we wanted to go next. As we were looking at the map, we heard someone coming up the stairs behind us. No big deal, so we point our flashlights over to the stairs because at this point, we didn't see any lights coming up the stairs, which was odd because that part of the building is pretty dark. Then up pops one of the main tour guides from earlier. No problem, we saw a few of the guides walking around earlier just checking up on people and making sure everyone is doing fine. The weird part was he didn't stop, but he walked right by us. He looked like he was on a mission, walking with perfect posture and had a blank stare on his face. So he walks right by us into the room we just left. We were all kind of puzzled. Like I said before, every other guide was pretty friendly. They would stop and talk to you. Something didn't seem right. So me and the other guy I was messing with walked back into the room we just came from. As we entered, my heart stopped for a second. No one was in the room. It was completely empty. My mind was racing, trying to figure out a way to explain what just happened. I turned to the guy I was with, and he looked back at me with his jaw dropped. Sure enough, we backed out of the room. The girls were asking us why we didn't go talk to the tour guide, and why we were acting weird. We were pretty dumbfounded and I couldn't talk, but the guy I was with said something along the lines of, "There's no one in there." The two girls gave, "What the hell?" faces at each other, and we all stumbled back into the room. Sure enough, no one was in there. Not going to lie, we found the closest exit and promptly said our goodbyes and then left. Case file number 3447, written by All That Salsa, Strike After Strike. My family just moved into our new house in 1995. I was 7 and my sister was 6. We were playing around while my parents were packing one afternoon. My sister starts to run towards the kitchen. Out of nowhere, a bolt of lightning comes flying across the room about 3 feet in front of her face. I'm not sure where it came into the house, but I sure as hell knew it blew up our cordless phone. My guess is that it came through the fireplace because we had one of those cheap tin chimneys. I have never heard anything louder than that until. Fast forward about 4 years. My sister and I are playing American football with my neighbors in their yard. Someone misses a catch and the ball goes into a wooded area. My sister goes in to get it, just as another lightning bolt blasts a tree about 20 feet from her. I mean, really destroys the tree. Bark shrapneled everywhere. But my sister didn't get hit by any because there happened to be another tree in between her and the one that was struck. Once again, flashing light, followed by momentary blindness and deafness. During neither of these instances was it raining, or had it been earlier that day. The worse the weather got was mostly cloudy. Well, you know they say lightning doesn't strike twice in the same spot, which is completely false, by the way. The conditions that enable a lightning or prompt lightning to strike in one spot, based on the exact resistance from the ground to the air, which is the path lightning usually takes, they're present even after a lightning strike, so it's actually more likely to strike relatively the same location. So don't go stand into a spot where lightning struck again. Not that you did, I'm just saying in general terms for everyone. Are some people attuned to lightning? I've never heard of a theory regarding that, but an even creepier idea is, what if lightning could be calibrated as a weapon? Not by our government, I don't think we really have weather control technology, but aliens could. Not that I really think in this case, aliens are targeting your sister, that would be weird. Why? But if anyone could, that'd be a crazy powerful weapon. Yeah. Case file number 3448, written by Gianna in Hell as An Unconscious Prophet. When I was 3, I predicted my grandfather's death. My dad says that he was playing with me and I just put both my hands on his face and said, "Grandpa's gone." That same day, he was diagnosed with cancer and died very shortly after. In university, I was staying in a dorm. I was out with some friends and we saw this girl who was also staying in the same dorm. My friends told me that later because I have zero memory of it, but apparently I walked up to her and said that she had to go get back to the dorm as soon as possible because there was a phone call for her. Turns out her father had died and they were trying desperately to reach her. At first, I thought my friends were pranking me, but the girl came to me and thanked me for telling her afterwards, so I don't think she'd participate in a prank like that. I think what freaks me out the most is that I don't remember any of this. I dreamt that my grandfather fell from a tree. I called him the next morning and he was in the hospital after falling from a tree. I thought it was probably just an extremely strong sense of déjà vu that made me imagine the prophetic dream, but my mother swore up and down that I told her the details of the dream and they all fit. Also, my neighbor told me how freaked out he was because his television would just randomly turn on and even change channels. But in this case, I still haven't told him that his TV faces my house and that it turns out my remote control is pretty powerful. Poor bastard. So, interesting stories regarding predicting future events, always mentally titillating to hear that. But, obviously, I'm most attuned to the last sentence of the story where you are a prankster and I simply give you a gold star because, well done. Poor bastard indeed. Case file number 3449, written by Lil Pidgey, Twisted Metal. One night, I was getting ready for bed on a cold winter night. I usually have the lights on in my room, but this night I remember not turning them on out of sheer laziness. I take out my contacts and put my glasses on and then go crawl into my bed. My bedroom is in the second story of our home, at the very front of the house, and before I switch on the light to read, before I snooze, I hear something. I hear an engine idling and think, oh, one of the neighbor's kids is going out. But I peek out my window and see a dark-colored sedan sitting in my driveway. It kinda weirds me out at first, but I thought it might be a newspaper delivery driver or someone simply turning around using our driveway. So I waited for him to do something. I see no one get in or leave the car, and I'm just crouched, peeking. I hear the doorbell ring. Now I'm kinda freaking out. Who rings someone else's doorbell at 3 to 4 a.m.? Not me for sure, and that's just sketchy. I hear my dad wake up. Oh, thank goodness. My dad is a tough dude. I hear him go, "Lil Piggy, is that your friend?" And I go, "Dad, come here." So he walks into my room and I tell him that there is a car just sitting in the driveway, and we both peek out. The car is now backing out of the driveway, and my dad just goes, "Stinking ding-dong ditchers." Now I feel safer. They're gone and my dad is here. He goes back to bed, and I attempt to sleep, but kind of just lay in bed for a while. The doorbell rings again. I scoot quickly to the window. I can see the driveway as well as the walkway up to the door, but not our patio, to check if either the car is there or if I can see someone running away from the ding-dong ditch. I see no one and no car. I stay up all night, no sleep, waiting to yell for my dad again in case something happens. I have heard of people ding-dong ditching to see if a house is okay to rob, so I am extra wary of a break-in. We also have an alarm system. Nothing else happens the rest of the night. In the morning we go outside and kinda talk about it, and in the front of our lawn we find one of those metal deer that you put Christmas lights on. Know what I'm talking about? On the front of our lawn. And it is completely mangled. The metal was not broken or scarred as if someone had forced it. It was just bent every which way and barely looked like a deer anymore. The weirdest part, it wasn't our deer, and we still have no idea who put it there, or why or how they were able to bend that steel. Case file number 3450, written by Barange, White Void Screamer. Well, a couple years back, I started having this weird dream in which it seemed everything was in night vision, green and black, like I was looking through some black op type of night vision goggles, and seemed to have my best friend with me as we waded through waist-high grass towards some sort of abandoned or condemned type building. I start to scan the building and zoom in on the exposed attic from the ground. All of a sudden, the darkness in the attic started to stir, and all I saw was 2 white eyes and one white void for a mouth, open, and utter the most terrifying sound I have ever heard and ever heard since. I woke up immediately, but could not move any part of my body besides my eyes, literally paralyzed with fear. Flash forward to the next month. I'm kicking it with my buddy, and we start going for a hike, right? We start wading through some waist-high grass and come across the same freaking house as the one I had in my dream, right up to the exposed attic. I turned tail, yelled to my buddy that I was dipping out, and hauled butt back home. I'd never seen that house ever, as me and my buddy were exploring a trail that I'd never been on, and I'd never told him about the dream I had. Case file number 3451, written by me, Nicolasta. No key required. My boyfriend and I were in Athens, Greece, studying abroad. I was sleeping in his room that night, while his other roommate was in my room sleeping there. He had us keep the key to the room so he wouldn't lose it, as long as we opened the door for him. That morning we woke up and were just cuddling in bed. The door had a lock on it that we hadn't touched because, well, we had just woken up. Then all of a sudden, we hear the door open, and I look over from the bed and there's a mirror next to the door so you can easily see who came in. I didn't see anyone, just the door open, then shut real fast. My boyfriend heard it too, and we continued talking until my boyfriend stopped and said, "Wait, we have the key. How'd Glenn get inside?" He started to hear the bathroom, on the right of the entrance, turn on, then stop. We had no idea what was going on. Then in a matter of like 3 seconds, in the mirror again, I see the bathroom door open, then the front door open and shut super hard and fast. We go over to it, and the door is still locked. We get super freaked out, and at breakfast we see Glenn and ask if he happened to get into our room, and not say anything. He said, "How could I? I don't have the key." Case file number 3452, written by Fed13, Buzz at the Pharmacy. My girlfriend had to go to work. My car is in the shop right now, but I wanted to go to the pharmacy to grab my meds. I figured it's nice enough out, about 45 degrees, 7 Celsius, for me to walk home myself. As we get to her car, I realize I forgot my watch. No biggie though. We live in a triple-decker in Boston on the 3rd floor with awful stairs, and I felt too lazy to go back up to grab my watch, to track my walk back home. We also live at the top of a hill, so it's nice to track, even if it isn't a huge workout, because I love weightlifting but hate cardio. Anyways, I realized I forgot my watch when I got into her car and mentioned it and decided it wasn't worth the effort. She clearly saw no watch on my wrist and my purse was empty. I distinctly remember not having it because I was wearing a frankly absurd jacket with really tight sleeves, so I would have noticed it 100%. Anyways, I get to the pharmacy, get my meds, and immediately feel my wrist buzz with the receipt. I thought nothing of it until I realized I thought I had left my watch at home. This seems like I'm misremembering, but my girlfriend confirmed it. Granted, we could both be misremembering such a small detail, but regardless, it's the first time something significantly weird has happened to me. Case file number 3453, written by O-1A0, Walls of Windows. When I was a teenager, I lived in the middle of some swampy woods, and the living room of my house has walls of windows with no curtains. I was working on a senior project late into night, and at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard what sounded like a woman screaming and running to the house. I couldn't see anything outside because it was so dark, but the thing slammed into one of the windows before running off. I think I left a yellow stain the entire way into the back of the house. I told my dad about it the next day, and found out that freaking wildcats sound like a woman screaming when they are mating or fighting. Jerk cats. Another event happened when I was much younger, in the same house. I don't remember it, but my mom told me about it when she found out that I hated windows. When I was around 3 or 4, at night, I would stare out the window and tell her someone was watching us. She thought I was full of crap, so she ignored it, until she was cleaning the windows and found multiple face prints on the outside of the windows from someone taller than anyone in our family. They would turn up every now and then until after I moved out of that house when I was 18. Needless to say, as an adult, I have thick, black, light-blocking curtains on all my windows and good outside lighting. Oh, and a dog that freaks out when people approach my house. Now time for the jokes of the day. I tried being polite today by holding the door open for a lady. She kept screaming, "I'm peeing here!" Oh well. I once opened the door for my mother-in-law to help her get out of the car. Apparently she didn't like that, as we're going 120 miles an hour. Yeah. I asked my mom if I was ugly. She snapped back and said, "I told you not to call me mom in front of people." Damn, how'd you recover from that? Your pupils are the last part to stop working when you're deceased. They dilate. Word plays. I went to a job interview the other day. The interviewer asked me to describe myself in 3 words. I said, lazy. Just 1 word, it's efficient. Video up here, YouTube thinks you'll like it, check it out. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I'll see you next time.